welcome. This is New England Authors with Kameel Nasr. It's good to be with you. I'm Kameel Nasr, and I have a wonderful guest with us today, Julie Hennrikus. Julie is a writer of
Cozy
mysteries. So let's start off. Define what a cozy mystery is.
Sure. A cozy mystery is sort of, think Murder, She Wrote on the page. It is a mystery novel where, in the traditional realm, where justice is served, there's not a lot of blood on the page, although they are usually murder mysteries. There's no sex on the page. They're sort of the clean, grandmother-friendly
the things that you go to read at night,
yeah.
And you feel good at it.
You
right?
feel good, yes.
Yeah, justice is done in a cozy mysteries. Now you said you have a couple of series of mysteries out, right?
Yeah.
And you write under a pen name.
I do. I write my clock shop mysteries under the name Julianne Holmes.
Julianne Holmes. This is one of the clock shop mysteries right here.
Is the third one.
Chime and Punishment.
Yes.
Okay. And
so
why?
Why? When Berkeley Publishing was looking for somebody, they had an idea in their editorial sessions about a series, and they were looking for somebody to write the series. And so, long story short, I got a call from an agent to say, do you want to audition for this job? And so I said yes. And this is a way of getting published that I never really knew a lot about. But when I took the contract, it's called a right for hire, I needed to pick another name because Berkeley owns it. So Julianne Holmes was supposed to be my name as a baby, Julianne Holmes Hennrikus.
Oh, really? Yes.
And my grandmother told him it was too long, so I'm Julianne Hennrikus. So when I had to pick a name, I wanted to choose a name that still meant something.
Oh, I see. So, yeah, okay, so that's very good. You had to choose a name, so it's a, shall we say, practical.
It's a practical, and it's a family name, and also Julianne sounds like Julie, which has been helpful because people think I'm Julianne, but I can respond. One of the names they floated by was Sadie something, and I would never have responded to Sadie. So every name I choose now sounds like Julie in some way or the other.
Yeah, no, I love your books. They're centered around, or this particular series is centered around clocks.
Yes.
And I discovered from your books that clocks and watches are different things.
Yes,
right?
very different. Especially in my second book, which is Clock and Dagger, I talk a lot about the difference between clocks and watches.
Yes, that's right. I remember that. And one of the things that really struck out, we want to talk about your book, but one of the things that really interested me was that you said that watches became important because of trains.
Yeah.
The trains had to run on time, so the watches had to have good mechanisms. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, one of the best ways for me to do research is I went to the American Clock and Watch Museum down in Bristol, Connecticut, and if anyone is at all interested in clocks or watches, I highly recommend spending a day there. And so one of the wonderful things is that they have a ton of different clocks and watches, but they also tell stories. And one of the stories that stuck with me was that before we started to have trains, clocks didn't have to be precise. You know, if you were within 5 or 10 minutes, right, who's going to tell George Washington his pocket watch was wrong? Who cares?
Yeah.
But then when we started to have trains, that mattered because there were a ton of train collisions. So they had a standardized railroad watch mechanism that was put into different casings depending on the conductors used, and that became a selling point that, you know, it's a precise timepiece if it's a railroad watch.
Yeah, right. Well, I love especially the big clocks from churches. I used to live near a place that rang every 15 minutes. It was really, really good. I love just the whole clockwork, and I think we talked earlier, there's a clock shop near my town that's got these great old clocks in it and all. Why did you pick that? Why did you pick clock shop. Was that something that you knew about beforehand? Something your family?
No, I've been finding
This
since
is interesting. This is interesting because a lot of writers become researchers.
You
Yeah,
do,
yeah.
and actually, researching is the most fun part of writing, as you probably know.
Right.
I mean, it's you can get stuck in research mode forever. But the idea was floated, and I loved it. And I am also finding, as I'm doing more research and talking to folks, that everyone has a clock in their family that means something, right? Everyone has an emotional attachment to a clock. And then I was telling a friend of mine about this, and she said, my husband's a clockmaker. So Dave Roberts, and they run the Clock Folk of New England, and they've been really helpful at letting me in and telling me about the process of becoming a clockmaker, which is a huge apprenticeship. It's 7 to 9 years of being an apprentice and learning. And
7 to 9 years.
Yeah,
Wow, that's like medical school.
It is like medical school, and they frequently, or what Dave was telling me is that they do learn on clocks and watches, but then you usually go towards one or the other, so that you specialize more. But the passion, I mean, you don't get rich being a clockmaker. The passion for it is really contagious, and I found that in the artistry of it. So I try to capture that in the books as well.
Yeah. So Julie Hennrikus, your protagonist is a woman named Ruth, and she's in all three of your books. Tell us, part of it is you, right?
I think part of it is me, especially as these are my first published novels. I think it's hard to hide yourself, and I sometimes I think Ruth is more me than I think she is, because I think if I tried to say she's 5'2", I don't know what life is like as a 5'2" woman. So all my protagonists tend to be tall.
One thing that she isn't like you is that she's in a small New England town. You're in the big city, right?
I am in the big city. But I love being in the big city. I'm definitely a city girl. And she's out in the Berkshires, which is a really beautiful part of the world. But I work in theater. I live in a neighborhood, and big cities can be small towns as well. I mean, it's you have your neighborhood, your block that you go shopping, you meet the same people going to the train every day. But she is in the Berkshire. She wasn't always. So when Just Killing Time's the first book, and we meet her, she is recently divorced.
Right.
She's out of work, and her grandfather's just died. And she goes out there, she thinks, to close his clock shop, even though she's also a clockmaker. Yeah. And then sort of gets pulled into Orchard, Massachusetts.
Right. Yes. This town that you made up.
Yeah,
right. Nice town, and it's got a villain.
Yeah.
Her boyfriend, not a boyfriend, her friend is the cop, right? So she is going to solve the mystery, and that's one of the features of cozy mysteries, isn't it? It is
that there's an amateur sleuth who usually has a relationship somehow with the police, and so her friend is the chief of police, and the thing that binds them together is that they're both coming at Orchard from the outside. He's recently moved there and become the chief of police, and she's moved back, but she hadn't been there in years. Yeah. And so, so there's a respect going on, but it helps in these books to always have a cop.
Oh yes, to have a cop, and I think in just about every mystery there's some kind of cop there, isn't there? And she has a cat, and I don't know, is it Bezel or Bezel?
Bezel.
And that's the name of a part of a clock, right?
It is.
What part of the clock is that?
When you if you looked at a watch and you saw the part that holds the crystal on, that's the bezel.
That's the bezel. Yeah. Nice name for a cat, And she's been in this clock business for years and years. Let me ask you, I'm sorry I just love clocks.
No, I think they're wonderful.
today, kids aren't wearing clocks, right? Young people,
No.
they don't wear watches. They just rely on their cell phones for the time. That's changing, isn't it?
It is. Well, and the accuracy of cell phones is a game changer. So my nieces will wear swatches, and they actually like having wearing a watch as a piece of jewelry.
Yeah.
But even that's electronic. It's not, hand done, and you don't wind it. So there's a mastery to this that I don't think will ever go completely away, because I think people will always enjoy and use clocks and watches, but they're not as used as they once were.
Yeah.
Even clock towers I talk about in Crime and Punishment, and when I was doing research on that, a lot of clock towers are converted to electric.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's kind of a shame, but it's a lot of work to maintain them and to wind them every week and everything else. But there's a majesty to that.
Yeah, we're talking with Julianne Holmes. This is New England Authors with Kameel Nasr. My father used to ring the church bell tower back in the good old days. But now, remember I told you that church that I used to live at, sounded every 15 minutes. It was a recording. It wasn't even the bell that was hitting. It was a recording. Yeah, so it was nice, but it was a recording.
But then they could shut it off more easily.
Yeah, they could shut it off at night, because I'm sure that people don't want to hear it at night. Yeah. So we enter into a different world in your novel. We enter into the world of art forgery, right? Or clock forgery or something like that. Is that a problem in the world? Or?
I think it's probably a problem everywhere. I mean, when you look at eBay or you look at anything, how can you tell if something's actually accurate or if it's been restored? And part of what I'm learning as I'm exploring this world is that if you restore a clock, there are two choices. You can either restore it so it's historically accurate, or you can restore it till it works. And hopefully both.
Right.
But some people will give up value in order to have it working. But people, if they'll say these are the original clockworks, if they aren't the original clockworks.
Why is it important? Is it important that it's
I think
original?
For people who value who look at, really want something that came from this one specific clockmaker, then they'd be upset if one of the, or some of the insides didn't come from that clockmaker.
Yeah. So tell us a little about yourself now. When and where did you start writing? What's your writing career been like?
I always wrote, I think. But I didn't really think of myself as possibly, I didn't say aloud that I wanted to be a writer for a long time. And then for a while, probably in my early 30s, I was taking a lot of classes and was taking classes in writing the great American novel.
You were taking like creative writing classes. Yeah.
And I was writing really boring books. And I had a friend in one of my classes, and every break we would talk about Elizabeth George or another book, and she said, "You're always talking about mysteries. Why aren't you writing a mystery?"
Right.
So in this book, I killed somebody in the second chapter, and it got a lot more interesting. So I joined Sisters in Crime, and I've been pursuing the dream for a long time. And it took a while to get published, probably 10 years to finally get
10 years how many novels did you write in that 10-year period?
I probably wrote about 4 novels, 2 of which are staying in a drawer. One of which I probably needs to stay in a drawer. And one of which I actually polished up and had my agent send to a publisher, and is going to be published in September.
Oh, really? Oh, that's great. That's
so
great.
that was really
thrilling. Oh, yeah. Well, okay. So I haven't read your other works. I've only read your clock books. Your clock books. Yeah. What do they call them?
The Clock Shop Mysteries.
Clock Shop Mysteries. Yeah. So tell us about your other series and stuff.
Well, I've been an arts administrator for my entire career, so over 30 years, and my great theater. Well, I've also worked in concert halls. I've worked at museums. I've mostly been in arts administration.
Oh, I see. You and I have a lot in common. I see. Okay.
I was never an actor. I've always been the administrative side of support, but that's how I've made my living.
Yeah.
And so I wrote a book. You want to write a book that is kind of in a world you know about. And my Theater Cop series is about an ex-policewoman who runs the theater company in the North Shore of Massachusetts.
Oh, and is there murder in that
Oh,
too?
yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's a murder.
So in the first
Is
one,
it cozy as well?
it's cozy, but it's a little more traditional, not quite as cozy.
Yeah,
There's
a little bit of blood.
Yeah, and there are 3 bodies by the end of the book.
Oh, yeah.
But they're doing a version of A Christmas Carol in order to raise money for the theater. And her best friend's father is killed and he's arrested. So
Oh, really?
she polishes off her badge and goes to work to try and find out who killed him.
Find out who killed
Yeah.
her. Oh,
Yeah.
that's an
So
interesting.
it's a nice, fun melding of my 2 worlds.
So, okay, so tell us about the New England art scene, the New England theater scene. Is it booming?
It is robust, very robust, strong. So I am the executive director of Stage Source, which is a service organization for the New England theater community. So I know a little bit more about it than some people.
Stage tours?
Stage Source,
Source.
SOURCE. It's
Yeah,
a
Stage
30 plus year service organization, and it's incredibly robust. There's a lot going on. It's got a wonderful community. It's spread throughout New England. There's community theater, there's college theater, there's commercial theater, there's nonprofit theaters in all different sizes. There's a ton of new work being produced. It's a caring community that's also working around issues around inclusion and access and parity and things like that. There are funding issues, as there are throughout the arts community.
Yeah, so is the funding kind of like being strangled by the states and by the state?
You know, it's for being New England and for being Massachusetts, there's not a ton of government funding, which is surprising, but the United States is not great about funding the arts.
Funding the arts, no, absolutely.
And Boston, though, is worse, and the Boston area is worse than other cities comparable.
You mean other cities around the New England area?
San Francisco, I think the city invests $25 million into the arts, and Boston around $1 million.
No, really?
Yeah.
And what could you do with $1 million? I mean, that's nothing.
You give a little bit to a few different companies, but you need foundations. You need, Massachusetts State. You need, we need more funding.
I'll tell you, the city of Berlin has two opera companies, because there used to be East and West Berlin. Actually, there's a third smaller company. They get, or they used to get, and it's probably more now, they used to get $100 million a year. Just for the opera companies. Opera is very expensive, but I'm
opera is very expensive.
Yeah.
And we have the Boston Lyric Opera, and it's a wonderful company, but they need space. I mean, there's a lot. So we
don't even have space. I work with them. We don't even have space.
No.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
So and we don't have rehearsal space. So I'm a relentless optimist. But I think that a lot of value is put on the fact that we're so artistically robust here, but we need to start supporting the arts in a lot more meaningful way.
Yeah, and I don't think the New England area really supports authors either, do they?
I don't know. I mean, I think that the entire publishing industry is kind of tough
It's very tough right now.
And we're fixing, we're sort of figuring out what marketing looks like and everything else. I will say, Mystery Writers of America, but especially for me, Sisters in Crime has been a lifesaver and has built my career, and I have wonderful friends from having been in a number of Sisters in Crime for so long. And I think that's where you find your support. You need to find it. We also have Grub Street, which is an amazing organization.
Grub Street's another organization, but you also belong to a small organization called Wicked Cozy. Right, what was it called?
We're the Wicked Cozy Authors.
We're Wicked Cozy Authors, yeah.
So we were six.
It's a great name.
Six of us, and we all started to get. So I'm going to go back and just the way we all have the same agent. There was an agent who sent Sheila Conley, who is then the president of Sisters in Crime New England, a letter and said, "I want cozy authors," and she said, "I can't pick people." Because cozies were being bought up by a lot of publishers, so she sent it out to everybody on the email list for Sisters in Crime. So several of my friends got contracts from that. I did not get it directly from that, but he became my agent later. So 3 years ago, all of the books for this group started to come out. Instead of doing single blogs, we decided to create this Wicked Cozy Authors blog. And it's Barbara Ross, Edith Maxwell, Sherry Harris, Liz McGovero, and Jessie Crockett and I. And we blog 5 days a week. We, travel. We do library appearances together now.
It's a support
It's
community.
a real support community.
So you read each other's works?
We read each other's work. We blurb each other's work. We celebrate. As you know, it's so much easier to be happy for somebody else than to say, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book.
Yes.
And so we do that for each other, you know. And we also are in almost daily contact, just checking in and, when we're close to deadlines or how's it going, or of course I'll read this, or, what do you need? So we're also, they're amazing women, and I'm really proud of the Wicked Cozy Authors.
Oh, good. Okay. New England Authors with Kameel Nasr, talking with Julie Hennrikus, and whose pen name, or one of pen names, is Julianne Holmes, and writes a series on clocks and clock shops, and what's their book coming out in September now?
It's called The Christmas Peril, and it's a theater cop mystery. So it's
yes, that's right. That's the theater cop mystery. Yeah. And so it's two things that are very close to your heart. Is there going to be another book about Ruth and her clock shop in the Berkshires?
Well, the latest one is Chime and Punishment, and it's out right now. And there are a couple of hanging stories that I left after Clock and Dagger that get wrapped up, and I'm always open to writing another one, but right now I wrap up a lot of the stories in this 3-story arc, especially around the clock tower.
You're also, I know from being Facebook friends, you're also a big baseball fan, right?
Huge baseball fan.
Yeah, huge.
Red Sox.
Have you ever thought about writing a mystery involving baseball?
That's a great question. I haven't, but
you haven't thought about it.
No, that would be fun.
Yeah. Something at a baseball game, or the pitcher, or
make Fenway Park the little community. Talk them into letting you come in.
You're talking about a big audience there.
Yeah, huge audience.
Think about it.
I know. I should.
Yeah.
I should.
Yeah.
I think baseball is one of the loveliest ways to spend a summer day or night. It's Fenway Park is so beautiful. And you walk in there, and it's, the lights and the green and everything else, and you just watch a great game, and it's just one of my happiest places.
Oh, that's great. That's great. When do you write? Do you write in the morning, night? Do you have
I wish I could write in the morning. It would make my life so much easier, but I can't. I write nights, but mostly weekends. I do work full time, so it gets challenging, but I plot. I plot ahead. I'm a huge plotter. So I have a book that I'm going to start working on now that's due December 1st
So you mean you outline the whole thing?
Really, so carefully.
Yeah.
And that makes it easier, so that when I sit down to write a scene, I don't have to think about it. I just say, this is a scene with Ruth and Ben, and these 3 things have to happen, and I need to drop these 2 clues, and I need to mention these 3 places, and go. And then my brain just says, okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
Because it's glorious and it's a wonderful thing, but writing on deadlines is challenging. And you really don't have the opportunity to not write.
So your publisher tells you you have to write by such and such a date.
So you send in the first, hopefully good draft, and then they get back to you with notes, and then you go to the copy editors, and then you go to the proof. And I used to, I'm sure you've had this happen too, I used to be so disdainful of when I read errors in books, and now knowing what I will miss in the last proof pages, you catch that a name is spelled wrong, or that this period is in the wrong, and so many people have looked at it a dozen times, and it got by people. So I'm incredibly sympathetic, but it's a huge process.
Yeah, but having said that, you can find an error or 2, but there are many self-published books that have many errors that haven't been edited really well. You need a professional editor. This is absolutely for all writers out there. You need a professional, at least one professional editor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you're self-publishing, you really need to invest in
because there's even more criticism of self.
No, and you want it to be the best. You can never you can never have that moment back. So you want it to be the best book it can possibly be, and that means help. I mean, everybody needs help to write a better book.
Yeah. So you've written Clock Shop Mysteries and others. Have you ever thought about going into something that like nonfiction or no?
No, actually, it's funny you say that because I think about that sometimes. I wrote a thesis about Agatha Christie. And her use of point of view.
Really?
I went to the Harvard Extension School.
A very interesting life she had.
Very interesting, very prolific life.
Right.
And so in writing that and really drilling down, I had a lot of fun. I thought that was a pretty interesting topic. And I, sometimes in my arts administration life, I think I should write a book about this. But I also sort of think sometimes maybe I should push myself to write a spy novel or write something different,
right,
and so I'm just noodling that a little bit in the back of my brain and of thinking, what else could I do?
Thank you so much for being with us. This is New England Authors with Kameel Nasr. Julianne Hennrikus has been my guest, and take care and write well. Bye.